What's going on YouTube? Make sure you've been back and seen all the previous competition prep videos if this is the first one of this series that you're watching. I'm Sonny Webster and today I'm going to be telling you about my competition prep day, which was the competition that actually got cancelled, which turned out to be a max out training session. Now the first thing that I kind of want to talk to you about was my travel to the competition. So I decided to book my flight a day before to get to the competition in ample time and have a good night's sleep before the day. However, and this is the exact reason why you should be booking your flights and traveling down the day before, because my flight got delayed by 4 hours. It meant I didn't actually arrive to the hotel, which was near the competition place where I was meant to be competing, only at 2 a.m. in the morning. So that was obviously a super late night for me, which did kind of throw me off, having only had about 4 to 5 hours sleep the night before the competition. Now, with that being said, that's something that sometimes is out of your control when you get there on the competition day, but it may mean with a very minimal amount of sleep and you're not feeling 100% that plans do need to change. Now, for my competition day, I had intended to open on 135 kilos snatch and then go 140 and then 145. However, I began my warm-up and it was quite evident in my warm-up that I was feeling a little bit sluggish, obviously a little bit demotivated as well that the competition had been cancelled. So I had to kind of tweak what my plan was on the day. So instead, what I decided to do was open on 130 kilos. So it was only 5 kilos less, but it gave me a more solid chance of actually getting a good first lift in and be able to build on that throughout the day. Obviously still finishing with a very good lift. I hit my 135 comfortably, and then on my final lift for the snatch, I went 140 and missed it. Now, if that's your last lift in the competition, what you need to make sure that you do before moving into the clean and jerk is you actually park that. There's nothing that you can do if you have a rubbish snatch session in a competition about it there and then. What's really important is that you wash your hands down and then you move on to focusing on the clean and jerk part of the tournament or the competition. Even if you have a rubbish snatch session, if you have a really good clean and jerk one in the comp, it can really make up for that downfall that you make in the snatch. What you really don't want to do, like I said, is dwell on it throughout the clean and jerk warm-up, as it's going to affect the clean and jerk performance as well, and you'll have a rubbish day all round. It's very difficult as a competitive weightlifter to put both the parts of the plan into one piece on the given day, so expect that there potentially is going to be some missed lifts and move on. Now, I was in a fortunate position because the competition got cancelled that I wanted to try and make sure that I managed to correct that 140 snatch. So I actually ended up dropping back down to 120 kilos, which is what I'll commonly do in training if I have a bad heavy snatch session. By dropping down to the 140, what I then focused on was actually thinking about starting in a slightly higher position. I felt that when I was doing the 140s and the snatch that I missed, I was sat back on it at the start and I was throwing my head back at the top of the lift. So instead what I did was I dropped back down, focused on a slightly higher bum position, thinking about staying over for longer at the top of the lift, which as I built back up, led me to be able to smash that 140 kilo snatch. So I was really happy about that, but I had noted that because I'd done maybe 6 or 7 extra lifts than I had initially planned on this max out day, that it was of course again going to take a little bit out of me going into the clean and jerk. I would never advise doing this in competition or having any extra lifts in the warm-up room after the snatch. Do it in your next day training if you can, because it's going to take it out of you, especially when tension's high and adrenaline's rushing through the body on the competition day. Now, I warmed up for the clean and jerk, and in the clean and jerk session, my intentions was to start on 175, hit 170, hit 175, and then go for 180 on the final lift, or even maybe it was 75, 80, 85. But regardless, just like I did on the snatch, I ended up bringing down my starting weight. I was feeling in the warm-up that my legs felt heavy and I was kind of talking myself out going for the 180 kilos clean and jerk, which is common in a competition environment. So I just brought down my start weight a little bit lighter. It's important to note that if you decide to do this in competition, you need to make sure that you bring your start weight down before the weight gets to that, before the bar gets to that weight. So what I'm trying to say is, if someone's building up, if the bar's a rising bar in the competition and say your opening weight was 180, but the bar got to 170 on someone's lifting on the platform, you can't pick a weight that is lighter than what's already on the platform. So you need to make sure if you are going to bring your start weight down, you do it in ample time so that your lift will be cooled earlier. All right, so always bear that in mind. And there's only a certain amount, I think it's 10 kilos that you can reduce when you start your lift, but I have to fact check on that one. So I ended up starting then at 170 kilos on my first lift, hit that comfortably, and then I went to 175. My first attempt at 175, I actually ended up missing. And the reason for that was because I didn't catch the bounce on the clean. Now, this is why it's so important to make sure that when you're doing a clean and jerk that you actually receive the bar and stand straight up out the hole, is because ultimately, if you have to take that double bounce in the bottom of the catch of the clean, it will take the energy out of you for the jerk, which again, for me, resulted in me missing the jerk on 175. So this is a fair bit down on what my 1RM is, but that just goes to show on the day, if you've not slept very well, travel's been bad, that it can take it out of you. And you've got to take it for what it is and focus on getting a good competition total together. I then went out for my next lift on it and I focused on correcting catching that bounce. I caught the bounce on this clean and stood straight up out the hole, which then meant at the top of the lift I had the energy that I needed to stick the jerk, and I nailed it comfortably. Having done that 175, looking back on it, I definitely felt as though 180 kilos would have been in the tank and maybe a little bit more. But the key thing is that I made my biggest total that I've done for a long time on the snatch and the clean and jerk together in one training session. And this is something that I'd say on reflection of my plan and my training building up to the competition, I didn't do enough of. I commonly, when I'm building up for a heavy, when I'm doing my heavy training throughout the week, we'll do snatch on one day and clean and jerk on the other. However, I'd say if you're building up for your first competition, as you get closer to the competition or your max out training, make sure that you're putting the snatch and the clean and jerk movements in the same session. This will get you used to doing the clean and jerk after having the pre-fatigue of doing the snatch. So going away from the competition, like I said, all in all, it was a max out training day. The competition got cancelled, which was a bummer, but I learned a lot from that process building up. I always say that leave it a day or two after the competition once the emotions have settled to actually do a review of the competition. What went well, what went rubbish, and what you're going to do differently in the next build up to correct it. It takes years to master the ability to be able to compete and hold your nerve in competition. And I'd say one thing that will certainly help you fast track your progress in this is making sure right from your first competition, you start to have this review process and you start refining what works well for you and what works well for you and what doesn't. That way you'll begin, as more and more competitions you do, be better and better prepared and a better chance of actually nailing the snatch and the clean and jerk and hitting PBs in your competition. In that review process, the key things that I'm kind of thinking about is what was my pre-prep like, so that training up to the competition, what was my competition day like in terms of my performance, how I felt, my preparation and my warm-ups, and then the actual competition lifts. What did I do well? How many lifts did I make? And kind of take notes of these stats. These are the things that are going to help you develop and become a better weightlifter, and especially a competition one. So like I said, I hope you enjoyed this video, enjoyed this series, getting a bit of an insight into my head building up to a max out training session. Make sure you leave me a comment. Let me know if you enjoyed this and what other videos you want to see next. And of course, like, share, and subscribe, guys. Thank you so much for watching this video. I'll see you soon.